Welcome to the Genealogy Happy Hour, a place where new family historians can learn to document their family histories and celebrate their new discoveries. I'm Amy.
And I'm Penny, and we're here to help you discover your family tree from the beginning.
Welcome to episode 32. Today, Penny and I are going to sort of continue with last month's podcast, but we're going to be talking about breaking down some brick walls and furthering your research through what's called cluster research, or what Elizabeth Shown Mills refers to as the fan club, your ancestors' fan club, those friends, associates, and neighbors that aren't particularly related, or we may not think that they're related, but may lead us to find those answers that we're looking for. But first, Penny likes port. Let's just put that out there. Penny does like port. So today we're going to feature a port.
I'd rather have port than dessert. So, so I've got a delicious port from the Alape Cellars Winery that's in Avia Beach, California. Mm-hmm. And we learned from them that Alape means heavenly, and it's a Native American word, and they're beautiful labels, beautiful. They almost remind me of the Starry Night.
There we go with our labels again.
Yeah, where we are with the labels. So this port is 67% Zinfandel port and 33% Toriga, which is a Portuguese grape port. Mm-hmm. And it is delicious. And their description of it, which I will put on the website, is jammy aromas of blueberry and raspberry with nuances of pepper and mint. And it's very good. I'm pretty sure. It's not a big bottle. I drank half of it last night. It was really good. Okay.
But you have yet to share it with me?
I don't think that's going to happen. I'm sorry.
Not sharing? Really?
So sad. Too bad.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine.
All right. But let's get into this fan club.
Cluster research. Well, last month we talked about your ancestor who left no records. So you look at their siblings, you look at the other people in the family, and try and find information about them that will lead you back to possibly identifying parents and something. Yeah. So anything to help. And today we're going to be looking a little bit farther outside of the family. And even when you look outside the family, sometimes you end up finding out that those people are really in the family.
It could be true.
Well, and I'll give an example in a few minutes.
Okay.
So, okay? All right. So the first thing to look for, obviously, is if you have some land information, a deed or something like that about where your family lived, then you definitely want to check out those neighbors. Look for the plats. Look for those maps that may actually have the people's names listed on there to see if you, first of all, to see if you recognize any of those names, but record all of that information. When you're to this part of your research, you need to just start writing down names. Write down, just cite your source. What's the source you're looking at, and write down all these names that are that are in the same vicinity as your ancestor, because they may not mean anything to you right now. There's no context yet, but as you continue your research, all of a sudden you might recognize one of those names later on.
Right, and that did happen to us.
It did. We both have experiences like that. So you're going to be looking at the maps. Where else do we look?
Well, you can look at probate records to see who's listed there, who are the executors. It might not be family members. It could be other people. Right.
Those witnesses, they may be related to the wife. Related to, so you want to be looking at those witnesses, witnesses on marriage records.
Right.
People who are doing the inventory on an estate, so oftentimes
who is owed money or who owes money, that'll all be listed there as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
City directories. City directories you can find a lot of information at city directories. Not only look for, because they're going to be listed alphabetically, so you have your surname and you go up and down that list and you look for anybody else with that same surname. And then you go back, and most of the time the directories also are listed by addresses.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is listed? Who else is living there?
Near
Who else is living in either that particular address, or even when you go down the names and you're looking at the name, like, let's just say you have your ancestor Johnson. Well, look at all those Johnsons. Does any of those other Johnsons have the same address?
Yeah, that's a good one to see if that's in there. And then, as you're talking about city directories, where they worked and who worked with them. These are employers.
Right, you had one where we're going back to your Burks, but he worked he was in the grocery store.
Right.
And so, who was the owner of the grocery store? It could have been, was it his in-laws?
Well, this wasn't, no, but it was relatives, and I could go to that direction to see if there's anything on
because oftentimes
on those,
right, it was the family business, and it may not be, maybe an uncle that he's working for.
Correct.
Okay, there you go.
Not a direct line, but somewhere else, or even like an uncle-in-law, or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Apprenticeships.
Yes.
So.
Okay, so the apprenticeship. So I did have something which led to nothing, but I'll just...
Are these your Burks again?
Still the
gosh.
Burks. Okay, so this was Calvin, son of John Burke, my infamous John Burke, who we can't find the father for. Anyway, Calvin, his son, was apprenticed to a William Shuck when he was, I think he was like 8. Yes, he was 8. And we both looked at that when we saw Edward Hill's will, and Edward Hill is Ellen's brother. Ellen is Calvin's mom.
Right. So the maternal uncle, when we saw the maternal uncle's estate records.
Yes, we saw his estate records, and he had 2 people listed, an Earl and a Pearl Shuck. Right. And we both went, wait, we've seen that name before. What is, I couldn't immediately look back, but I figured out later that it's William Shuck. Was the same last name. So as I dug into that, I've got Earl and Pearl Shuck, and the Earl and Pearl I also have on another side in Ohio, but I've determined they are not the same people. 2 are girls and 2 are boys.
Just really popular names in Ohio.
Apparently. That was in that area.
Okay.
Anyway, so I've got Edward Hill's probate mentions the grandchildren Earl and Pearl Shuck. I find a record showing that Edward's daughter Viola, married an Otis Shuck in that area. Okay, so now I've got the other family. Otis's parents were Philip and Caroline Shuck.
Okay.
And further research determined that William Shuck is Philip's brother. So I've got Edward's daughter, Viola's in-law's brother is the one who then became the apprenticed little Calvin.
Of her cousin.
Yes. So, yes. Right. Her cousin is now apprenticed and working on this farm as free labor, I guess. So I thought, well, maybe there's something in William's inventory that might lead me to something. And I didn't really find anything. I did find his obituary, or again called the library, and Hancock and Justin was great and found his obituary for me. It was very sad. He had hung himself in 1902. That was
as an older man.
Yeah. So it was long past Calvin had already died long ago. So that helped out not one iota. But
you can see how everyone's related.
Yes. I can see the big picture.
Right. Their business, right. The uncle is apprenticing him off to someone the family is related to.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So that was
his
very
daughter's
helpful
in-laws,
to see that big picture. And it was fun. It was fun to kind of track that down and get that all figured out.
And it didn't help you with John Burke at all.
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
I feel like that's going to be the running thing, that I will never find anything out about this man. All right.
Well, I have... I inherited from my mother a lot of family photos, and some of them have names on the back, but I don't recognize those names. And all I heard was, well, maybe they're distant relative. I just didn't know. So, and I've always wondered why my grandfather and my great-grandparents came over from Germany. They came over from Germany. My grandfather was, he wasn't even a year old yet. In 1884, and why did they go to Michigan? I think, of all the places, a lot of immigrants came into the country, but why did they go to Michigan?
Right.
Because as far as I knew, there was no other relatives around. There's a couple other people with that same surname, but as far as I knew, they're not related at all. So when we were out in Salt Lake City for Roots Tech a couple of years ago, we spent some time at the library there, and I went down in the basement in the foreign research, doing foreign research, and I found the parish records for my family. And I started going back, and that's when I found my great-grandparents' parents, and lo and behold, there's that name. So this name that's on these photographs that did not mean anything to me, as I continued my research, I figured out, okay, so there must be a relationship there.
Yes.
And then I looked for the siblings, and I found out that it looks like my great-grandfather's aunt. She married into this family, and they came over first, and I think they're already established in Michigan, and so that's why they went to southern Michigan. It was because there was already family there.
Nice.
So, but I had no
idea.
idea.
And you'd never heard of that name.
But I've never heard of that name. Nothing.
Yeah, I remember when you were doing that research, because you had those wonderful ladies helping you.
It was
that
great.
They were arguing amongst themselves
In
over
German,
what everything
yeah.
meant. Yeah, in German.
In German, yes.
That's fun.
Yeah, because I can get through the German documents, okay, but when you start looking at that script and they're using abbreviations, once they start the parish the parish pastors, they start abbreviating, or they're abbreviating in Latin, then it becomes very Latin and German. Then it's very difficult, and they were able to help me. It was just wonderful. It's a wonderful experience researching out there, because you have the language experts right there that you can just call over, and they're right there to help you, and you can just get through a lot.
Yes. So, if you've never been, you need to go to Salt Lake City.
It's true. Here I had these photographs that meant nothing to me. I thought maybe they're family, friends, neighbors, you don't know. And come to find out that they were, in fact, I was able to make that connection and grow that family that way. So
that's a great thing to do, because I'm sure there's so many of us that have photographs with names on the back that we're like, who's this? We have probably more photographs that have no names at all, and we're like, who is this? That's a lot harder. To do, but but those names that don't mean anything to you, go try it, see what's out there, and see what you find.
In addition to the city directories, you also need to look for church directories. Church communities, especially in the 18th, 19th century. I mean, that was a community, and most people in the community were related in some way, because the communities were so much smaller. So look for those church memberships and church directories, and those parishioners may end up being relatives or in-laws.
Right.
Because again, when you have these women, it's so difficult to figure out who they belong to when if you don't have the marriage record, that's about all you have.
And even in the churches, the pastor, if they kept good records, or just the church records on baptisms and marriages and things like that, is such a great place. So
write down those names that don't mean anything to you, but especially if they keep kind of popping up,
right?
In different documents. If you see that's the same name witnessed on several different documents, keep track of those, because as you progress throughout your research, all of a sudden, names that had no context will all of a sudden, become important to your family research. Just recently, I had a document that I was sharing with a newfound cousin that I connected with, again, on the Burke side. And I had shared the document with him, and he wrote back to me immediately, "This is so interesting. This name," there was another name in there. He goes, his name is so familiar to me because it's a name that has been in his family, or, neighbors or good friends or whatever. And I thought, okay, so this is all making more sense, that this document is the right document that we want, if he's got a connection to one of these names. Right. Now, I haven't researched that name any further. We just kind of stumbled across this recently, but that is a clue for me, and it kind of solidifies I'm on the right track. Right. Yeah. The other thing you need to do is when you're going through the census, especially if you have someone who has a common name, an ancestor who has a common name, before you make that jump to, this must be the wife or this must be the children, make sure that you look for anybody else in that community with that same name. And then eliminate them. Make sure that, okay, this guy with these kids has a different wife. So I know that, because it's just amazing. It just really amazes me how you can even have an ancestor with a unique name. And all of a sudden there's like one or two other people who were born within a year of that ancestor and who died. I had one that, I forgot what the name was. It was kind of a unique name, but two guys born within a year of each other. They died in the same city in the same year. And here I thought, oh, look, there's two different probates for this guy. And it turns out they are two different guys.
Two different guys.
Yeah. So you need to, again, sort those people out and make sure that you are always focusing on the right person and not assuming that, oh, he's got the same name, so that must be my ancestor.
It's difficult. My great-grandfather is like that. Two counties right next to each other. Two kids born the same year, same name, different set of parents, no birth record because it's, in the 1830s. So it's like,
Well, and the other thing you need to do is make sure that, are they related? Because again, families use the same names within the family, so they could be,
I did determine which one it was, but still, yes, you have to use all that collateralness out there to
those collateral lines. You do have to change those collateral lines because, and you're going to start making wrong assumptions, and you're going to go off in the wrong direction, or you're going to merge two people into one. I think that happens a lot. People start merging two people into one, and all of a sudden you've got kids that are commingled that are really from two different families. So it's important to again weed those people out and make sure that you separated all the people with the same name within that community. Or you can say, oh, that person, I know that there's a person by the same name who lived in Chicago, the same name who lived in Cleveland, and the same name who lived in Boston. So I can rule out anybody but that name in Boston because those are not the people.
Right.
Especially when you're going through Ancestry or you're going through Family Search and you're finding those locations. You can weed out those locations right away.
Yeah. And then get your research report written up so you've got your definitive answer and you know what is true and what is not true, and you don't have to go back and...
Right. I mean, I can't talk enough. If you look at my my blog post from a couple months ago on our research trip when we came back, I did write a little bit lengthy about the research log because it's such an important tool.
It is.
And, we're so busy making notes on scraps of paper and getting photocopies and taking pictures of documents that you need to take the time to write down where you researched, the date you researched, the citation, the book number, the page number, the citation for the bibliography of if it's a book or because you're going to be referring back to that when you write up your research. And if you don't write up your research, it doesn't have to be a professional looking genealogical report. It can just be an in-depth family group sheet with lots of notes and lots of citations in your family.
But it's nice to have a summary in there of this is what I found. This is the these are the documents to prove what I found.
Right. Because if you don't write it up, writing it up makes you analyze your evidence. It makes you become a better researcher because as you're writing it up and as you're looking at those documents, you start thinking, oh, wait, well, I need to go look for, or I haven't looked for, or yes, I am right. This does make sense. Again, you bringing in those timelines, and if you write up the research, you're going to be a much better genealogist.
Yeah.
So, and people who are non-genealogically oriented.
Most of our families,
those family members who really aren't all that interested in genealogy because they're crazy, they might take the time to read something if you've written it in a way that's more interesting, that doesn't, go on and on about this document and that document. They don't want to see the documents. They just kind of want to have the story. But you need to make sure that your story is accurate and you have the solid facts behind it. So, they're not going to be interested in all the documents and all the research you did, but they might be interested in the story you write.
Yeah, exactly.
So, use those research logs, write up your information, your research, and, and that's until you feel like you have done everything on that family, that research report or that genealogical write-up is going to be a work in progress. And you're constantly going to be adding new information to it as your research progresses.
Right.
So look back at that blog, or look at all of our blogs. We've got good stuff on our blogs.
Yeah.
Penny does a good job with that.
Oh.
I add stuff from time to time.
Yeah.
You're the social media guru.
Yeah, you do.
All right. So, use the fan club.
Yep.
As,
And use the siblings and your collateral relatives.
Yep. And if you're interested, I'm sure you can Google Elizabeth Shawn Mills fan club. There's tons of posts out there, and I mean she says it better, talks about it better than we do. So, but it could break those brick walls that you have. So give it a try, and unless you're researching the Burke family, don't give up. If you're researching the Burke family, give up.
Forget it.
All right, until next time.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. Please email us with any questions or comments at genealogyhappyhour@gmail.com.
Visit our website, www.genealogyhappyhour.com, for additional resources, books, and wines. Don't forget to drink responsibly
and never drink around genealogical documents.